What's up on it, friends and family? I am hot off a motherfucking plane from Peru, and I'm here because business don't quit. I'm here with my man, Jason VanHeulen. Jason, what's going on, my friend?
What's up, Aubrey?
So, if you guys have been following our Twitter stream, you might be aware of a recent flurry of activity from one hip hop megastar, superstar, hardworking guy, Ludacris, who's been repping our shirts, hitting the battle ropes, rocking some workouts with the Primal Bell, and we owe that to Luda's hardworking trainer Jason, who got familiar with our products through our good friend Dar, who builds the motorcycles, the one that we're raffling, and we owe that to you, man. So I guess the first place to start is thank you, my friend. Appreciate the support and the love, and looking forward to introducing you to our fan base.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. When Dar first called me about the product, and he said, "Hey, I'm building this bike for these guys. We're going to help you to do a charity work." And I get really leery about supplement companies, and I've heard of Onnit. I've seen the kettlebells, and then he called me again. He said, "Just let me send you some product. You really like it." And the second it all showed up, I tell you what, within about a week, I was like, "I'm in love. We ain't going back." I'm glad.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are the most kind of finely tuned and aware of their body, it's a really easy sell for on it stuff. Like highly trained athletes or trainers or people who are used to their own performance markers. That's been one of the great things about our product line is get products in hands like those, and generally, things happen on their own.
Yeah, completely agree. The product was just fantastic, and we could feel the difference between the workouts and taking the hemp force and the shrooms. Since we travel so much too, even the 180 has helped out a ton too. So there's been some extreme benefits that we noticed within weeks. And for us to actually say, yeah, we're on board with something that quick is pretty exciting.
That's awesome, man. So let's talk a little bit about you, because obviously, the world of personal training is incredibly competitive, and you've risen to a position where you're able to work with one of the biggest stars in the world and perform at an extremely high level. Take us through your journey to get to where you are now.
Oh man, I hope you guys got this whole hour. I actually grew up in Michigan. I grew up in a body shop, working my ass off, to be honest with you, for my dad. So my work ethic from a kid has been absolutely fantastic. And he always kind of told me, you never half-ass anything, whatever you do in life. So from a young kid, I just had that work ethic, and I took it into school. I took it into college. Made my mistakes, but I ended up actually out in Colorado State and really get involved with the exercise and nutrition world. Got on board with the Colorado State football team, student strength coach, really fell in love with that. Took an internship up in Vail, Colorado, and obviously I'm giving the very short version of this. But during my internship, I wasn't allowed to train, obviously, but I watched some of the best trainers that I saw, in Vail have, steady clientele, and they were extremely, passionate about what they did. They were extremely passionate about their clients, how they took care of them. The gentleman that I ended up doing my internship for, Dan Tim, taught me about customer service and how to run a club. And I just took everything in, like just a wealth of knowledge, a sponge, and turned that around into being, one of the most successful trainers probably in Colorado. And I hate to say, like, toot my own horn here, but to get a full schedule in a small town and about train almost every single person there was fantastic. So within a couple of years, I got to a point where I was so busy I couldn't even take any more clients. At that point, I started realizing, what if I should go somewhere else and just try to test myself out? So I picked up, started all fresh down in Arizona, and redid it all over again. That's actually how I ended up meeting Chris. I was actually at an extremely nice health club called DC Ranch in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I had a client who knew Chris. He was also helping Chris with his nutrition, because Ludacris, Chris will call him Chris, he was getting on board, with nutrition, supplements, just starting to figure out how to work out. He came into Scottsdale, Arizona, and was looking for a trainer. My client knew him, set us up, and within 2 days, Chris and I hit it off so well. He's like, "Hey, I've been training with a couple other guys, but what you're showing me is something completely different. I need you on staff." So from there, I mean, this is obviously a very, very quick story, but he said to me, he's like, I'm filming this Fast and Furious movie, and I was like, oh yeah, I've never heard of him. One of those little ones. So he said, I'm tired of being the small guy next to Vin Diesel, Tyrese, The Rock. So I need your help. And I'm like, I don't know what that entails. I've been working every single day, in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he's like, I need you to come and move to London with me and shoot this movie. And we've hit it off ever since. So we've been on the road almost for 2 years now. Actually, August will be the 2 years that I've been working for Chris.
That's awesome, man. And it
just a lot of hard work is really what it came down to. Striving from the very get-go to never give up. And even when times got really rough and I restarted, I never gave up on the idea of making it in this industry. And one of the biggest things I'll remember still in college about that is I had a professor look out in front of all 30 of students graduating exercise science and said, not one of you will make over $30,000 a year. And I had laughed as I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, it's not that we're not all here to help people, but I don't want my dog getting skinny either. You know what I mean? So I'm going to out hustle every single person I could to get to where I did.
Some of those times when someone puts out that challenge like that, you can think they're a dick, but then later on you might be like, hey, hey, thanks for that. I appreciate that bringing it to me so that I had a little extra fire in those times when you want to just kind of, put on the brakes a little bit and coast. I had somebody I worked for at one point tell me that I would never be successful outside of his company. And I just kind of smiled and looked at him. And then, in those moments you're like, God, I'm tired. I just remember that, like, oh yeah, I remember that, and you can use that as fuel. It just depends on the perspective you have.
Yep, dig in and drive harder.
That's it. And also, your whole story kind of illustrates, something we talk about a lot and Onnit, and that's just being great at whatever it is you're doing. In the meantime, while the bigger opportunities arise, like whatever it is you find yourself doing, like you ended up making the connection with Chris because of work you did with another client. Well, if you had ever phoned it in with that other client, because you're like, oh, it's just one of my fucking 100 clients, who cares? That connection wouldn't have been made. So by putting out that much effort for everybody, then it opens you up for these opportunities that could have just kind of sailed by. And you'd still be successful, I'm sure, in doing your own thing. But this is obviously a pretty special situation in a relationship that's, probably even transcends just simple economics.
And when you say even, the personal training business, how competitive it really is too, just to even get a little deeper into that, the gentleman that knew Chris was actually training with another guy. So when I came to the club as a brand new, I had to outbeat those guys, to, gain some new clientele. And then on top of that, Chris was already training with 3 other guys, from Miami, LA, and Atlanta. So he didn't know me for anything, didn't know any background. And within 2 days, we made that. And hey, look, this is just the work is a little bit more dynamic, and I'm out here hustling as hard as I can for Chris as well too. So yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's passion and digging in.
Yeah, no doubt. You picked some good places to live, though. I have to commend you on that. From Vail to Scottsdale, I mean, it wasn't so hard.
I'm making the corners from Michigan to Colorado to that. So I figure next I got to make my way up to like Maryland or something.
Well, I guess you paid your dues in Michigan a little bit. I mean, that's not usually on the top of the list, the places where people want to live.
At least that in the rear view. So
yeah, no doubt. So take us through kind of what your day-to-day routine is in kind of helping someone like Chris get his optimal performance.
Yeah. Time now is a little bit differently spent in Atlanta so I'll just give you a day-to-day thing of what we do here. I'm obviously on call. Chris has a lot of different businesses, a lot of different entertainment, media, things like that to do. So we'll figure out a time by that night, and then I plan my rest of my day, obviously around Chris. But typically we work out, mid-morning. We like that. He has good energy then, so we go after that pretty hard. Waking up, I typically, I run my own business. I have an online training company as well too that I run. So I'll do a little bit of that in the morning, do the coffee, do the greens thing, and then make my way over to hanging out with Chris. And this year is actually the first year we started working out together. So it's been a little bit more exciting. So it actually frees up even more time that I have. But then we'll work out with Chris, and then from there, go back. I actually take a few more of his client or his team for clients that I'll help out here in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And, mountain bike and run and be active outside the rest of the day.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your plan when he came to you and said, look, I got to look a little bigger. I got Vin D. I got these big guys there. What was your basic strategy to kind of help him bulk up? Because you see that in movies a lot. You see people like, holy shit, that guy got big,
Yeah. When I met Chris, he was, skinnier obviously, but he was just starting to work out. So for him to say, looking at me and saying, hey, look, I need to have someone with your type of physique coming into Hollywood and help me, get paired as an action person next to Vin Diesel and, Dwayne Johnson and stuff, which is a tough job to do. But what we went after is Chris really wanted the overall lifestyle approach too. So it wasn't really just about bulking up. He really wanted this to be a lifestyle. So he's like, I want, to be able to work out and do something active an hour each day for as long as we can. So what we went after is a four-day plan, 2 upper body days, 1 lower heavy day, and then 1 dynamic full body day with a couple days of rest, recovery, mobility work, stretching, and, some pool work and whatever in between. We pretty much followed that for almost 2 straight years, and it's brought Chris almost up 20 pounds in muscle. So that was the other thing too, is we brought him up nice and smooth and even. Because obviously, between stylists and doing shows and stuff like that, we can't afford to really have what the heck just happened? My tooth don't. I got to all of a sudden host the Grammys.
Yeah.
What Chris has done is the extreme smart approach of, I don't need to get bulked up. I need to look the best I can in every situation, and we've gone after that. And if you can recall, or if anybody's out there seen Fast and Furious 6, Chris just killed this. We didn't have a lot of time to really put a lot of size on his frame. But he ends up turning out looking in the first scene that you see Chris with his shirt off, and by the Enzo Ferrari, he looks absolutely ripped and bigger than what you think. And we've had people say, man, what's he weigh? 180, 190? And I'm like, I'm not telling you, but yeah, probably pretty close. We didn't go after the bulk thing. We just went after how to approach Chris on looking the best he can in every single day situation, whether he's got to host a show, being on Rising Star. He's done a fantastic job about it. So that 4-day-a-week plan with doing some stretching, mobility, and pool work in between, we've kept. So it's worked really well.
So how do you break that up? I mean, what's the what do you just do 1 day in between, or do you do 2 days in a row and then take? How does that week look in general?
Well, if we're on a Monday through Saturday schedule, typically we take Sundays off. On a Monday through Saturday schedule, we'll do an upper body. He's a big fan of, obviously, bench press and stuff like that, which about every guy out there is.
Mm-hmm.
Do an upper body heavy weight day with some auxiliary movements. So we'll focus on like 2 strength movements throughout the week for the upper body. So for instance, if it's going to be heavy press and then 1 heavy pull, I'll split that between Monday and Thursday, and that'll be our upper body days. And then what we'll do is we'll walk him through basically every 3 weeks. The workouts will switch, but we'll keep that same strength exercise so he can continue to get stronger in that lift. Then I'll add auxiliary lifts, right, just for some hypertrophy work, and then we'll add a little conditioning at the end. And that'll be like our upper body day. The lower body day will focus more on, obviously, core, 1 lift again, 1 strength lift again. So that could be, box squat, deadlift. Those are big ones that we use for Chris. And they seem to be, paying off big time. He's definitely increasing a whole lot of strength this last year, so it's been fantastic. And then we'll move into a little bit more dynamic movement. So we'll do some jumping, some pulling, kettlebell. You've seen it, the kettlebell, farmer's walks, offset carries, different sprint work. And then the Wednesday, that will be our day that we work just on mobility, working on weak spots, hip mobility, shoulders, making sure that the whole body's staying healthy and injury-free. We'll do short interval bursts on Wednesdays and on Saturdays as well, too. Wednesday and Saturday look almost exactly, but I'll split how the workout is. So some days we're working on 15 to 20 seconds of high intensity. The next day we might bump that up just a little bit, might do 20 to 30 seconds, giving Chris short breaks, obviously, so he keeps his body fat very low. And then Thursday, we're going to go back into an upper body day, but we'll switch that into more body weight. So to kind of give the joints a little bit of a break, we might do, ring push-ups, ring pull-ups, pull-ups itself, but we'll switch it so that's a little bit easier on his joints so he can recover. Friday, almost identical, more dynamic movement, as same day as like Tuesday. So he gets, some jumping, some slams, some carries, and keeps him a little bit loose, helps him recover coming into the weekends because he typically has shows and events on the weekends, obviously like Rising Star and concerts on the weekend too. So, and then Saturday, we've been fortunate enough to do again like Wednesday, work on mobility, work on the stretching, working on, getting in a little bit more open, and then some short intervals as well too. It sounds like a big week, but it works really, really well.
Yeah, no, it sounds like the kind of ideal blend of these different methodologies. And I think, that's one thing that we're really, pushing into our fitness system. Obviously the equipment, as far as the equipment goes, we're really strong proponents of the unconventional training, but with our alliance with Joe DeFranco and some of the other things, I mean, there's very little things you can do to replace a good heavy box squat or a deadlift. You actually don't even have to go that heavy on a box squat, but deadlifts and some of those things, they're just good with a bar,
We actually, as get deeper into that program too, we'll either switch out a box squat or a deadlift about every 3 weeks, some sort of squat variation, some sort of deadlift variation, but they switch out every 3 weeks. The auxiliary movements that we are using are kettlebell, dumbbells, a lot of TRX as well too. We finished, obviously now, thanks to you guys, we finished a lot with the ropes. So that's been a blessing and a curse at the same time for like last week. So 40-pound ropes when you're done with like the upper body day. We found that one's a new brutal one. So, but yeah, so we will use auxiliary movements in that. The TRX and the kettlebells, I find, obviously the different stability muscles that are turning on that you get neglected in the big box squat and the deadlift have been beneficial. So I've played with both of those too, like before the strength work where we've done some body weight warm up, and I've done them at the end as well too. And I've actually found my own benefit blend of this is that Chris does better with them at the end. So a lot of strength coaches might argue with me about that, but I find it works out better.
Well, your guy, and I think that's another thing that's important is that every person is different, and just absolutely taking something as rote and following it yourself just may not work for you. You got to work with your own natural strengths, weaknesses, inclinations. Same with on the nutrition and supplementation side. We make our supplements to appeal and foods to appeal to the broadest audience possible, but there's going to be some people that Alpha Brain is not a great supplement for them. And some people that it's a life game changer, there's a full bell curve with all of this stuff, and the same with different exercises as well.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So when you're talking about your own performance, because I'm sure you're something of a perfectionist there, what is it that keeps you motivated for your own workouts, your own body, your own everything? Is it all professionally based, or do you have some other tricks?
Man, I absolutely, just to be honest with you, around the world, wherever I've gone, wherever I've lived, I've always been really athletic and worked out. And it doesn't always have to be a gym workout. If I'm not doing something daily, like active, I just go nuts, and I'm not a good person to be around. I just want to deal with that. So I have to be doing something. So the weight training to me is the easy part. I find that is something I have extreme passion for. So building, the periodization programs for Chris and seeing how he develops and how I get stronger along with him is really cool. But what keeps me really motivated is to be outside. So skiing, hiking. I go to Colorado quite a bit as well too. But wherever we travel, I pretty much run about everywhere. I've ran from Africa to Malaysia to you name it.
You ran from Africa to Malaysia? I don't know if that's even possible.
So I got that one up on about anybody from my small little town in Michigan. So that's been really cool. So yeah, it's just, for me, it's the work ethic that I've had since a kid. I just find that the exercise every single day, and it doesn't matter how long it is or how short it is, whatever it is, as long as I'm doing something active, that balances me out. And I feel like I really need that. So when I wake up, I'm super excited about starting the day, and I'm super excited, probably most trainers after a cup of coffee, about getting after it. So that's what fuels me. And then just seeing that I can actually get off a plane. A true story, last year I got off a plane from Miami to Vail, Colorado, and some of the other coaches I worked with are like, we're going to go hike up to 13,200 feet and backcountry ski. I haven't been on skis in a year, but I used to love doing this. So I jumped up and just hung with the best of them. And I was like, I actually owe that to the daily work ethic of staying on it, really. No pun intended, but that's been my fuel for fire.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. There's a funny phenomenon with trainers that I wanted to ask you about, and I've experienced it myself with my own trainers, and that for some reason, when you're working out with a trainer, you tell that person fucking everything about your life. It is like they become your psychiatrist.
I know way too much about one's life.
Their confidant, What is it about that relationship that just creates that scenario?
Yeah, you're doing the swing all wrong. Yeah, I've actually had that. I've had a couple of trainers who have come in and worked out with me. They're like, hey, just, give me a couple coaching cues or whatever. And I'm always like, where the hell did you learn that from? So, I understand that.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, what else can you tell us about, just kind of that dynamic of, being with someone who's that kind of famous? Like, how is that something that's difficult for both you guys to manage? Is that something that he's pretty comfortable with? Because I know when I'm with Joe Rogan out at a UFC, there's points where he's just fucking exhausted. Like people are, it's like he's swimming through the Amazon and little piranhas are nipping at his energy like constantly. Is that a challenge you guys have to face?
I will admit, from the second I met Chris in Atlanta to fly to London when we were filming Fast and Furious 6, I was just shocked. I mean, I know he was a big deal, and I've been listening to Chris since he came out, but I did not know it was like this. I have literally seen some of the craziest things. He's fine with it. I mean, he's been doing this for 10 years. He's a superstar. I'm a little country kid from Michigan, so to hang out with Chris Daly and see the level of stardom was shocking to me. But at the same time, it motivated me because I watched him never sweat it. Like, he was so grateful that there were so many fans worldwide that, like it's like his humbleness motivated me, where I'm like, oh my goodness, people are taking pictures of me. I should start smiling because you'll see me, like, I'll get a picture with him, but, it's like, oh, no, I got to learn how to dress a little bit better and smile a little better. But, that was a big shock for me. Being at somebody his level. I have been with a couple famous soccer players and hockey players and NFL players, and it wasn't even close to the same level.
Yeah.
Chris is, at a level of hip hop where he is at the very top, and now coming into Hollywood big time too. So, yeah, as I have adjusted to that's been my biggest thing that I've had to work on. It wasn't the workout. I travel really well, so whenever we go places, I can sleep, eat, wake up, work out, wherever we got to go. But the stardom that Chris was at was my biggest thing to get over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. When you do travel, do you bring your own equipment, or do you have stuff shipped in advance, or kind of how do you guys generally work with that?
Yeah, it depends on where we're headed. If we are going over to LA, we'll bring obviously some of the ropes, TRX. We did a road trip last year for Chris's new album, Ludacris, coming out, and we went out for 8 weeks, and we were on 2 big, huge tour buses, and I literally had the whole back end filled with sandbags, the kettlebells, and the heavy ball slams. So every single time we stopped, we were doing a workout, because that's about all we could do, because we were on the road, for 8 straight weeks until we would stop in a hotel, and then occasionally we'd get a workout. Now, however, typically when we go other places, though, we'll either use the hotel gym, or we have some gyms that we've actually become kind of a little bit affiliated with, in LA and places that we go quite a bit, Miami. So those have been fantastic to use too, because we can come in, pretty much everybody knows, it's more private style gym, so we don't have to worry about anything, and it works out really well. So no matter where we go, we've got something, and I'll make it work. So it's kind of funny, it's kind of like Along Came Polly. I'm on the no plan. I have a plan of that I need Chris to do, and sometimes I have to completely, wing it and be like, well, this is all we got. This is what we're going to do, and we'll make this work.
Sure.
So either we never scratch workout, though. Wherever we're at, we we've hit it every single day. So
what are some of the weirdest, because I've found myself in weird situations, like doing weird things with chairs, doing weird things with tables, deadlifting the bed. Like I've found myself in some weird spots. You guys ever get yourself in a weird spot where you're like, all right, fuck it, what do we got here? Let's make something work.
I'll give you two. About a year and a half ago, we were flying from London all the way to Winnipeg, Canada, for Chris to do a show on a Saturday night. So we left London like 6 in the morning, and we get to Winnipeg at like 8 o'clock at night. I don't know what time zone at this point. I'm like, to heck with it. So get off the plane, and driver picks us up. He's going to bring us to the hotel, and Chris is like, is there a gym around? And he's like, gym, what are you guys talking about? And then he starts looking at me.
What are you guys talking about?
Like an hour and a half before the show starts. He goes, I have some friends who, play at the hockey rink. You can go check that out. So we went downstairs in this, Division III hockey rink, and literally walked the smell of, death, blood, and everything was on the floor. It was literally the size of my kitchen table with, oldest rusted equipment you've ever seen. And we just went at it. We did some squats, did some cable curls. You had to, grease the cable to make it work, but it ended up working out, okay. So we got to get working. The other funny one, actually, I caught Chris still motivated on. When we were filming over in Fast Furious 6 over in London, they were doing a midnight, all-night shot. And we couldn't work out because we did 2 back-to-back all-night, filming sessions. So when we got up, we decided, hey, we can work out somewhere on set, we'll just figure it out. We didn't know that we were going to be downtown London. So one of the buildings was open, which was a bank building. And I came around the corner with a cup of coffee, and it's 3 in the morning, and I catch Chris doing dips off the security bench. I was just laughing. I was like, this guy's definitely motivated. I was like, here we just got to go into 1,000 dip contest, see who could finish first. That was our workout. That was our workout for the day. We did that, some jump squats, and walked right back on the set. So
nice. Yeah, you got to get it where you can. I was just down in Peru, and trying to figure out what I could do, and there was kind of wood railings and wood cross beams that were pretty thick, probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 inch diameter. So I would just get up there and do as many pull-ups as I could until my hands were, actually it was almost my hands that gave out first, just burning from trying to hold on to this thick, log I'm trying to do pull-ups off of, and then figuring out different other mechanisms. Next time I'm just going to ship a kettlebell down there because that would be super helpful. But swinging around like a monkey, everybody's looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" Just fighting the good fight.
I saw your Instagram, how when you're over in Santa Monica doing the ropes. And it's funny because I was there a week before doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I went to Colorado, and I was trying to stay out of the gym. And all of a sudden I found this playground. I was doing a trail run, and there was a playground. I did the same thing you did. I was find the bars, you're doing pull-ups, push-ups, whatever you can off the bars, doing some, lever work. So, yeah, wherever you can, man, you got to do it.
Yeah, get in. So what are some tips if you were going to give to, some of our people, and either motivational or technical or whatever? What do you want to leave our people with? Some pearls of wisdom from the man himself.
The number one thing I always tell people is honestly, just you got to believe in yourself, number one. That is, I find so many trainers and so many other people, when they come into you, especially as clients, nobody really has, that belief in themselves that they can do it. People are nervous when they walk into the door, in gyms, or you're nervous walking into an interview. And it's really, you've got to take a second back, take a few deep breaths, and believe in yourself that we can actually do this. And I find that's been, a huge motivator for me. The second one is, I'm going to go back to my dad's work ethic that he taught me, and literally never half-ass anything. When you go out and do it, even if it's going to be screwed up good, because that's the only way you're going to learn how to do it any better. And I have had my plenty of screw-ups, and I've had to learn from that and fight back even harder. Number 3, I would say it's the name of the company, be relentless. And it kind of ties in the other two, is that we never give up no matter what. Every single day we go out there to make it happen. And whether that is, making money at your job, or, being successful, at a career, being successful in the gym, working a little bit harder than you did yesterday, being a good father, a good mother. Whatever it is that we do it to the absolute best of our ability, and we do not quit. So that's been my 3 points that I always keep in the back of my head every single day when I wake up, is believe in myself, go out there and get it and be relentless.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, we owe you a debt of gratitude here from Onnit, and we want to let you know we got your back in whatever endeavors you are doing. Chris as well. Send our love and support, and anything that Onnit can do, new gear, new stuff, new subs, whatever we can do to support the fam, we're into it, man. So I want to say thank you. And this was great, too. I love hearing your perspective.
I greatly appreciate it. Orlando, Aubrey, Jennifer, you guys have been great. Like, I've been now, like, on board about 6 weeks, and every single product's been fantastic. Love it. You guys are up on my site as well, too, now. Aubrey, I think you got more videos on my site than I do, so.
All right. I like it.
Get that nailed down, and, maybe I'll do a few more videos so that I'm on there more than you are. Right?
I like it. Let's make it happen. And if we ever cross paths in the same city, I'd love to meet you and catch a workout with you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We'll definitely do that.
All right, sounds good. I need to put on some weight after this Peru trip. Woo-wee. It's like I was cutting down to a lightweight fight.
And get some rest, buddy.
I will, brother. I will. Good to talk to you, man, and thank you, Onnit people. We're back. We're back in the fucking saddle. We'll be seeing a lot more of you. Much love. Peace.